All right, boys and girls, welcome to the Bass, Kayak, and Beers podcast. It's your boy Armando. I got a bottle today of beer, not a can. So if you didn't hear the can opening like I usually do, I tried to do it with the bottle, but yeah, got some Modelo. A friend of mine brought me a 6-pack, so not big into Modelo beer. If you tried it, give me a comment. Leave me a comment on my social media. You can follow me at Bass, Kayak, and Beers on Instagram and also TikTok. So go check it out. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I got Jake Harshman. Jake is kind of like a yearly thing now. He comes in and we previewed the Hobie B.O.S. Susquehanna. I tried to pronounce it. I don't know how it's gonna come out, but for those PA anglers, please, I apologize for botching that name. I know some of you are sticklers about that, so and I get it. So, anyways, Jake's third time I got Jake Harshman here. And again, excited to bring him in. I love Jake. He's a great dude, great personality. And we always love to talk bass fishing with him. So that's pretty much it. That's what we're gonna be talking about. Hobie B.O.S. As for myself, this week I just got out of the water a few hours ago. I went to two-acre creek or 2-acre lake or Mill Creek Lake. I don't know the name. It's called different name by different people, but it's somewhere in Camden, Texas. And temperatures are in the hundreds. Water temperatures were almost in the 90s. I only caught one bass today. I usually do pretty well with the frog bite on that lake, but not today, man. Just one little like 14-inch bass. So that was it. Had to get out of the water by like 11 because it was already 100 degrees by 11. So yeah, it's been a tough summer, both weather and fishing, as you might expect, with the water temperatures hitting consistently in the upper 80s and lower 90s. But anyways, big shout out to my sponsor, Douglas Outdoors. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup of LRS, X Matrix, and award-winning fly fishing rods. We'll go to a quick waypoints commercial. We'll have Jake join us right now. Mr. Jake Harshman, how you doing, buddy?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me. How are you?
My pleasure, man. Thank you. I know you're in your day off, and so I appreciate you taking time to join me in the podcast. I know I ruined your date night. Your wife already mentioned it, so I owe you. Maybe I'll give
okay. You get me one time a year. She gets me 364 days a year. So
there you go.
Can you hear my dogs?
And I don't mind them, but yeah, I can hear them wrestling around.
Yeah, so that's a new and interesting development. My wife wanted to get a puppy, and I didn't want to get a puppy, so we got a puppy, and now we have a full-grown Irish doodle and a brand new puppy. What kind of doodle is it? It's a golden doodle. So he's a terrorist.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, he likes to poop on the floor right in front of the Ring camera. He runs around biting at my other dog's legs. So he's just a real nice little guy. Real nice.
There you go. Now, did your wife did what I did to my wife, which is I just showed up with the dog. I told him, hey, I'm going to a grocery store and then I'll come back with the dog. Did you just throw it at you or?
No, about a week leading up to it, she was really nice, and she was like making my favorite meals, and like, oh hey, can I go wash your car in a bathing suit? And like she did all these things for me, and I was like, oh, that's really nice. And then she's like, oh hey, by the way, we're gonna buy a puppy, and I'm like, okay,
there you go.
I guess I owned that one.
Well, there you go, man. I hope you enjoy. What's the puppy's name?
Benny.
Benny?
Yeah. So we got Benny and Bruno. They have their own Instagram.
Oh, really? Are you one of those couples now?
Yep.
All right. That's the end of that, I guess. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
I'll send you the Instagram. Link it up.
You can plug it in at the end. You can say where can people follow. You can say where they can follow Benny and Bruno.
Good deal.
I'm sure you'll get hundreds of followers just from listening to this podcast. But Jake, first of all, I always like to thank you for your service. I know you still are. Since last time I talked, you haven't quit your job, right? You're still a policeman in Pennsylvania?
I have not quit my job yet. If everybody starts subscribing and watching my YouTube videos, maybe I will quit my job one of these days. But I'm still a federal police officer. Yeah.
How's that going? How's the job going?
It's the job. It's a job. It's I try not to bring it home. I try not to really think about it whenever I'm not there. And I just when I'm not at work, I think about fishing. And when I'm at work, I still think about fishing, but I have to I have to pay attention to work too. So
Well, thank you for your service, man.
I appreciate it, bud. I do.
So, Jake, you signed up already for the Hobie B.O.S, I'm assuming, right? Did you get...
gosh, yeah, man. I was one of the first people that signed up because that thing went like gone. It was just absolutely quick. I think they said it was like 8 or 9 minutes. It was sold out.
Yeah.
It's the best shallow, or not even shallow, but moving water fishery in the country for smallmouth bass. You have the St. Lawrence, which I know the St. Lawrence moves, but man, that's really tough to fish in a kayak. But the fish up there are just kind of insane, but it's more lake-like. But this river is, right now, especially, you can walk across most of it and not get your knees wet. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's going to be an eye opener for people who have never been here that come here and are like, holy crap, I am going to have to paddle because that's a real thing. So, I mean, I was out today, and where I was at today, there was hardly any water. It was maybe in most places a foot and a half deep, and that was like the whole way across the river. So
let's dig in right into the predictions. I usually save this for the last, but now that you mentioned the low water level, and I'm thinking, I was going to say Drew Gregory, but no, Jody Quinn has won it at least the last 2 years.
Yeah, the only 2 years it's been here is the first and second, and he's won it both years. Jody he's more than just a river angler. He's probably one of the best that there is in the sport. And I would rank him in the top 3 of the sport. And it's a toss up any given match or any given day between him, Drew, and you could argue, who?
Cody?
I was going to argue and say Christine. Christine.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
She's the reigning TOC champion. I mean, you could honestly and put in that same conversation, you could put Jordan Marshall and Cody Milton and Russ Snyders. But I think between those 3, but Jody, he knows this river really well, and he's been fishing this river for a long time. So when you have someone with that level of experience, with that level of skill, competing in a tournament against 199 other people, he's always going to be a favorite. He's just that good. And, he could very well come out and win it again this year, but I'm hoping that I have something to say about that. I would like to make his reign as champion end, and I would love to see him come in second place. But, I think Jody's always a favorite to win this event, but you have the absolute best river anglers in the country that are going to be here. You got Drew Gregory that's going to be here. Russell Johnson's going to be here. You got some other guys that aren't as well known that are fantastic river anglers that are all going to be here. This is going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be the toughest test, the most stacked field that we've had all year long. And I think that this river is going to show out because in the past few weeks, I know last week we had a tournament on the river and a lot of really good river anglers, and 92 inches is what it took to win on a one-day tournament. I think that you could reasonably expect to see anything between 90 and 95 inches per day to win.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the fish this year, I mean, they've been big. Like, they've just been big. My last 5 trips out on the river, 4 of which have been over 90 inches. And the one that wasn't was on Saturday at the tournament when I had 89 and something. So, you could say that, man, like it's going to be, I think it's going to take 100 and maybe 185 inches to win this tournament.
That was what I wanted to go in next. What was your prediction? I think 185. Like last year, I think it was 184.
I think this year with the class of fish that I've witnessed being caught, I think it's 185 plus is what it will take.
185?
Yeah, at least. If not more, I think it'll be 185 or more. It's just fishing really good this year so far. And when I say really good, it's fishing really good for big fish. There's been a lot of big fish caught this year.
What do you think that is? And sorry, I interrupted you there for a second. I've noticed on the past you've mentioned, that there had been a problem or perceived problem with the flathead catfish and all that. Has anything been done about it? And what did you attribute this year being? Is it just the water levels or what's going on?
So the nice thing is that the past 2 years we've had very productive spawns. This year I can't really speak for, but 2019 and 2020 we had really productive spawns. 2018 the spawn was completely blown out. Those fish were on a treadmill all year long, and I think what we witnessed in 2020, the first year that they had the B.O.S here, the river fished pretty tough. And I think what you witnessed there was that you had a fairly large amount of fish that didn't make it through the 2018 floods. And the ones that did, it took them a couple years to basically grow up. But, this year we've been relatively unscathed as far as, weather-related flooding events. We did have one that was of concern to me that happened in about mid-May when the fish were up on beds. They had a high water event that I think may have washed out that one wave. But other than that, the water levels had been pretty, standard, like not crazy, And I think that plays a huge role that those fish aren't constantly burning all those calories on that treadmill, because when the water gets up above 5-6 feet here on the gauge, they have to pack into eddies or they're out in the current, and there's that's some heavy current that we have here. The other aspect is when the water gets really, really high like that and the fish all have to pack into protected areas, the flatheads pack in there too. And they're such a territorial creature that when they're packed into close proximity with other fish become prey. And, they just eat them. And, you'll see it after a high water event, you'll find a lot of fish with bite marks on them. Because they're not eating them because they're hungry. They're eating them because they're invading their space. And that's, if you look, like, it's funny, it never fails. You get a high water event here, and then afterwards you're going to find a bunch of smallmouth that have catfish bite marks on them. So
that's interesting. That's good insight of as far as the health of the river. Going into this event, and I know it's kind of like, I don't want to add, like, as far as the podcast goes, I would love to have some more information, but I know the event hasn't taken place. I don't know how much intel you want to share, but I'll ask it and I'll leave it up to you how vague or how detailed
you can ask anything you want, and if I can answer it, I'll answer it.
What do you think is going to be the key, and granted, this is the 30 and the 31st of July. Sorry about that. Mm-hmm. So a lot could happen. We're still at the time of this recording. What is it? The 7th of July. So still 3 weeks away. So anything could happen as far as weather. But what do you think is going to be the key to this tournament?
I think somebody who, if the water levels stay the way they are, somebody who's able to paddle a boat is going to do really well in this event. I think if the water levels stay the way they are right now, pedal drives are going to be almost pointless. I think somebody who's able to downsize and get real skinny as far as both weight and gear, I think that person is going to have a lot of success. I also think that the person who is able to get out of their boat and navigate the river on foot is going to have a lot of success. Those three things are going to be very key to fishing this river effectively if the water levels stay the way they are. If the water levels come up, if the river rises a foot and a half, it's a completely different ball game. I mean, completely. That opens up almost anybody could come out here and win that event, because when the river's at 4.5, 5 feet, those fish do nothing but eat. They do nothing but eat and eat and eat and eat and eat. So, at 3.5 feet, it's going to take what I mentioned. At 4.5 feet, anybody could come out here and win this event.
And for you actually have a PA-14, right?
I have a bunch of different boats now.
Okay.
So I have a PA-14 that I'm very likely going to be selling. I also bought one of the new Jackson NARs because
nice.
Personally, I prefer that pedal style motion over the kicking motion of a Hobie. But for the B.O.S on the river, I will be using my Hobie iTrek 11. And for the exact reasons that I mentioned, that boat weighs, I don't know, fully rigged with everything I'm going to take on it. It's sub 80 pounds. It drafts inches, like maybe 2 inches of water, if that, fully loaded. And then the pedal, the fins are kind of stubby. They're short, so I can actually pedal in less than a foot of water, whereas other people aren't going to be able to. And even my flutter kick can happen in inches of water. So, it's it's an advantage to have that boat on this river. And I've rigged it out pretty good. Like, I got it set up the way that I would need to have it for a tournament setting. I tested that out last weekend. I got the horizontal rod storage on it. I have the anchor line management set up for the front, and I put some H rails on it. So, it's pretty well set up, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited to get out and use it and show what it's capable of. So
when rigging up for this type of event, like you mentioned, it's being lightweight and mobile and agile with your kayak is going to be key, especially if the water level stays what they are. When you go to a lake, you see like a guy like Ronaldo Nandin here from Texas who takes 16 rods, which, I mean, it works great for him. He's had success, but I'm assuming something like that's not going to, it's total overkill on that river. Usually, how many rods would you take, and what type of baits? Like,
I would be very, very surprised that anybody that takes more than 6 rods is going to do well in this tournament. Let's see, type of baits. I think that the summertime topwater bite is absolute fire here, and if you have something that you can rip across the current and keep it up, on top of the water and not sink. I think that the fish really like that. I'm going to be pretty basic in what I say here. Top, middle, and bottom. If you can cover top, middle, and bottom and have, rods, I'm going to take 4 rods. Me personally, I'm going to take 4 rods, and I don't mind telling you what I'm going to take. I'm going to take a rod that's specifically for topwater. And it's going to range anywhere from 3/8 ounce buzz bait to a Whopper Plopper 130. And then I'm going to have a rod that I can throw chatterbaits and swim baits on, and chatterbaits seem to be a staple on this river. A lot of people use them and they catch a lot of fish. The swim baits, I don't want to get into talking about the individual swim baits that I'm going to use, but it's going to be a a decent sized swim bait. I like to throw some big swim baits out here, but the other rod would double honestly as kind of like a finesse topwater rod for some smaller like poppers and walking baits, but it would also be my spinner bait and shallow diving crankbait rod. And the fourth rod, and it's one that I hope never gets used, is a spinning rod for some sort of finesse presentation on the bottom, whether it's a Ned rig or a finesse jig or something like that. That's the rod that I hope to never have to use whenever I go out fishing. But I take it just in case I need it. So that's going to be the 4 rods that I take fishing with me. And that's it. That's absolutely it.
Yeah, seems like that is the smart approach. Considering this lake, yeah. Or
yeah,
like
in this instance, when you're talking about paddling rapids and you're talking about, getting super skinny and super shallow, you don't want to have all that gear. You don't want to have, I'm going to take 2 tackle boxes, like one 3,700 size and one 3,600 size tackle box, a couple bags of plastics and 4 rods, and I'm going to go fishing. You don't want to take a bunch of crap, because the more you load yourself down, the more you're going to sit lower in the water, and the more you're going to have to drag your kayak, and paddling a heavier kayak. I mean, look at Drew Gregory. Yep. Be like Drew. That's reality. Be like Drew, because otherwise, you're going to find yourself, if you come here for any amount of time to pre-fish and you have all that stuff, you're going to find yourself pissed off and be like, man, I should have downsized. And by the end of the week, you're going to take 3 rods and a tackle box and be like, I'm not dragging this big ass boat with all this gear again. You know what I mean? Because that's what you're going to do. People are going to drag. You come to the Susquehanna River with some good gripping river shoes, because if you don't, you're going to be pissed off. Don't bring your Crocs. They're going to fill up with rocks. They're probably going to fall off in the water. Bring a good pair of river shoes.
Yeah, it seems like that's the norm with that lake on. Keep saying lake, with that river on the, with the water level being so low. Yeah, and it's kind of sets up perfectly for Drew in that aspect. Now, I don't know if Jody Quinn has another kayak. The times that I've shared the water with Jody Quinn, he always has his PA 360, which I'm assuming he's not going to use that. Now, on the past, I don't know if it was last year or the year before last year. I think it was the year before last year. So the first Hobie B.O.S. If I'm not mistaken, I think he won that event, but he was fishing like the main river channel. Like, he was not targeting eddies. He was not targeting the bank. He was more like the middle. I think he mentioned he was, doing with the spinner bait with the willow blade or Colorado blade. I can't remember which one.
I'm not gonna confirm which one either.
Yeah, but so when he won those tournament, again, I can't remember if it was last year, or the year before last year. It was completely different from what it seems like to be setting up this year. You think he'll be able to duplicate that this year?
The first year that he won it is very similar to the way it is right now, setting up. Last year was not. Last year was a lot different. There was a lot more water, a lot more current. But the first year he won it, he could absolutely reproduce what he did. And the reason why you're mentioning that he was out in the main river and he was in the channels, when this river gets low, these fish don't have to be protected from the current.
Yeah.
They could literally be anywhere, right? They could be anywhere that has a water depth and, enough of them for them to be there, like to not have their backs out of the water. So they literally could be anywhere. But, if you're going across the river and it's a foot deep, and all of a sudden drops to 3 foot for 20 yards, they're probably going to be in that channel. They're going to be attached to some sort of cover or structure in that depth. And that's more than likely the way he was fishing it. in what he had found, which there's spots like that all over the river. I'm not going to say where he was fishing because I would not do that to him. But there's spots like that all over this river. And if you can find them, you're probably going to find fish in them. I went out with my buddy on the boat today and we found similar to what I'm talking about. And every log or rock or something had fish on it. Now, whether they're going to eat is a whole nother scenario, but it's being able to find those differences, and I know that's probably, well, I don't want to say I know, that's probably what he was talking about and alluding to as to how he won that tournament. That would be my guess because that's been the pattern per se for the last couple weeks. So, and if the river levels stay the way it is, that he's, like I said, he's a favorite. He's a favorite for it because he's won it at the exact same river level that it is right now. So, and that's not the only tournaments that he's won on this river. He's won KBF. Oh, no, yeah. He's won KBF tournaments on this river. He's won almost every major tournament that's come to this river that he's fished in. He's won. So,
Any local anglers that might be joining that you might consider like a dark horse to win it? Like somebody we don't know that you say, you know what, you should keep an eye on this guy. This guy could totally win it.
So, Alex Fiocca. Do you know who Alex is?
I've heard the name. I can't put a face to the name, but I've heard the name, definitely.
Currently, he's the reigning Mid-Atlantic kayak bass fishing angler of the year. He's a very well-rounded angler that he just won this tournament last weekend with 92 inches. He's a sleeper pick. You know who Russell Johnson is? Russell's a national name, right?
Yeah.
So Russell's obviously, he's somewhat local. He's a fan favorite. But if I had to pick somebody that nobody would expect and nobody knew who it was, Billy Dorburo. Billy is a local guy here, and he has this weird ability to locate big fish. And what you'll find is when Billy goes out and wins tournaments, he either blows it completely out of the water with like something absolutely astronomical, or he's kind of gets in that run of the mill, like in that pack where you expect everyone to be. Billy doesn't really ever blank. He's a solid fisherman, but he has a very, very good ability to find big fish, and he's very knowledgeable about this river. If I had a sleeper pick of a local, it would be him. But I say all that, and I come back to the fact that if I'm going to pick any local, I'm going to pick myself.
Oh yeah,
and that's not that's not sounding arrogant or anything else like that. But if I go into this tournament not expecting to win, picking somebody else, I'm not going to win. So I would love to see Billy come in third, second, whatever. But
love to see him get a check, not just not the first place check, right?
Absolutely love to see him get a check. Yes, I want to see all my friends cash checks. But
now let me ask you this, and this is more of a personal question, right? Your first time fishing a Hobie B.O.S. Was in Guntersville, right? That's the one.
The first B.O.S. that I ever fished was Lake Seminole in 2020.
That's the one you won, right?
Yes.
Okay. So do you feel, not taking anything away from your success, right? And I know you haven't been able to fish the national trails as much, but do you ever feel like, do you want to break that stigma of like being a one-hit wonder kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really let it bother me, but I do let it motivate me. There are some haters out there that don't like me, and I'm okay with that. But
why would anybody not like you?
Well, because I'm an asshole generally. But there's some people out there that say these things, and they might say it even jokingly, but there's a little truth to every joke. And I let stuff like that, I let it motivate me. And yeah, I absolutely don't want to be considered a one-hit wonder. Nobody knew who I was on a national scene before 2020. But I did come into 2020 as the Mid-Atlantic KBF Angler of the Year. I'd won that in 2019. So I was coming in off of a high note. I was fishing really well. I was fishing really focused. There's a lot to be said for that when you're focused on fishing. And there was not a lot of outside interference or things in my mind. But I will say, man, winning the first event that I've ever fished with the Hobie, God, that was tough because you set the bar extremely high for yourself.
Yeah.
And when you set the bar that high, well, winning is addictive.
Yeah.
It's a very addictive. It's more addictive than crack, right? Like, when you win, you want to do nothing else but win again. And it has nothing to do with the money, anything like that. The money's great. The money's nice. But we don't do this because we want to get rich. We do this because we love to fish. And, that feeling of winning is incredibly addictive, but it's hard. It's hard because there's so many good anglers out there that fish this trail that, some guys are just perennial guys and girls are perennial powerhouses that are really hard to beat. But yeah, it's I definitely have a lot of drive to try to win this tournament. And the past 2 years have really been difficult for traveling. It's been difficult both because of COVID, but now it's difficult because of gas. Like, it's just, the last 2 years have been really kind of jacked up as far as, being able to go places and stuff like that. I really wanted to go up to Winnipesaukee, but I couldn't. I would love to go out to Wisconsin to the Wolf and Fox River. I think that would be a really, really fun tournament. I think that one's going to be a surprising one to a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people are going to be expecting what comes from there, but I think that's going to be a big fish tournament and a lot of smallmouth. And, that's kind of what I like to do. But yeah, the travel and, just the world events in the past 2 years have made it really difficult to travel to some of these tournaments whenever you're still working a full-time job and have a family to support and a mortgage to pay. So
when you talk about, the sport, the state of, the kayak fishing tournament, right? I compare it, as far as American sports go, like golf, in the sense that this is not really a spectator sport like football or, like basketball, baseball. This is more of like, kind of PGA Tour, which again, they do have a lot more spectators than kayak fishing, but this is more really driven with the tournament anglers. And as the sports grow, we start to seeing it kind of take shape. And one of the things that I notice, it's one thing to win a tournament in, let's say, Fox and River, right? And not numbers aside, I'm not talking about one has 60 anglers registered, the other one has 200. Aside from that, when we look at the places like Chickamauga, Guntersville, Lake Fork, the Susquehanna, do you feel like, one, money aside and entry, number of anglers aside, one really puts you out there as the tournament you want to win? Like, you want to, I feel like this has turned into, let me circle the calendar, because if I have to choose which one I'm going to win, I want to win that one. Or I want to win Lake Fork versus I want to win some Broken Bow in Oklahoma, which is Great Lake, but doesn't have that mystique about it.
Yeah, I think every event that Hobie has is a premier event. I'll say that first. Every event that they have is a premier event. However, certain fisheries will definitely make me get the Sharpie out with the marker and circle those dates on the calendar. This one is one of them. And it's not just because I lived here. or I live here. I mean, if I lived in freaking Tennessee, I would still want to come here. This event, this river, the time of year that they have it, it's fantastic. You're not going to find a lake in July that fishes as well as this river will fish, especially for the big fish. You just won't find it. So I think that's one of the reasons why people are like, oh man, it's the middle of the year, or actually it's more towards the end of the year. But this event will always attract a huge amount of people, and it's only going to grow as people learn and see what this place is capable of, because this place is capable of some amazing things. Like, there's some big fish being caught in this river. I think that this event I hope Hobie comes back here every year. I would love to see this place be a Hobie Worlds qualifier, because it deserves that. It deserves that kind of, accolades with it. When you come to this river, you are going to work and earn a win on this river. You won't luck into it. You're going to earn it, because the current's going to make you earn it, and the fish are going to make you earn it. These fish are not easy to catch. They eat, but they're not easy to catch. When you catch an 18, 19, 20-inch smallmouth in 2 feet of water, they have no other place to go but up. They will jump 3, 4, 5 feet in the air and shake their bodies and twist around and try to throw your hook any way they can, and they are wildly successful at it. They're not easy to put in the boat. And sometimes you got to chase them around. And when you got to chase them around in this current, it's not easy to do. This event is a tough one to win, and I think that's why it attracts the amount and the quality of anglers that it attracts. I would rank it up there as in my opinion, the best event that Hobie has every year that they've had it so far. It's the one that people want to come to. I lost you, buddy. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. It's gotten to be like the staple. Like, every year it seems like, at least the first 2 years, or the last 2 years, I should say. And I would imagine they will keep bringing it every year, especially with the numbers going up every year. And this year is sold out. And it's sold out in, like you mentioned, less than 10 minutes. I don't know. Some people say 6 minutes.
It was like 6 to 8 minutes. But
yeah,
here's one thing to note, right? And most people probably don't know this, but the first year that we had it here, it wasn't even supposed to be here. It was a rescheduled event from May. We were supposed to go to Lake Erie in May, and they rescheduled it with like 2 months notice, and it still grabbed 112 people. So naturally, you put it back on the schedule for the following year, and it jumps up to, like, I think it was 150 last year. And then as the sport has kind of exploded, now, year 3, you're selling out in six minutes with 200 people. To not come back here, I mean, I think it's disrespectful to not come back here. But I think there's more that goes into it than just, not coming back here for the anglers because we've shown that we want it. I think that the local host communities have to be willing to put forth what they should be putting forth in order to keep events coming back here. If the local hosting organizations, visitors bureaus and stuff like that, aren't willing to bring the event back here by helping out with the way that they do at every other event, that's a very large depending thing. Like, going to a location, they basically have to want you to be there, which means they have to throw a little money your way for the cost of operating the tournament. If they're not willing to do that, then I can understand why they wouldn't come back here. But in the same token, like, you could tell the anglers, hey, we're going to have to charge more for this event just to be able to go back there, just to make it able to be done. And I think it would still sell out. But yeah, this place, this time of year, this series, you can't go wrong. Every event that's come to the Susquehanna River has been a success on a national scale. And again, later this year in October, Native is bringing a national level event to this river. That Native Power Hour series, they're going to be here in the beginning of October. And buddy, you think this place is fishing well now? Like wait till after July 30th, 31st. And if you think it's fishing well after you see the numbers, wait until October. October is a whole nother ball game. Like it's the fish are fat and they're feeding up for the winter, and it's going to be legit in October. I feel bad for the judges of that event in October. They're going to be judging a lot of fish.
Yeah, it seems like it's like you said. It's one of those bucket list fisheries that you gotta do it if you love bass fishing. If you love kayak bass fishing, it's one of those things that you really want to be at some point, even if it's just for fun, even if it's not a tournament. You want to visit that fishery. Now, let me ask you this: as far as this fishery is concerned, everybody keeps talking about smallmouth bass. Is that the only way you're going to win? Is there any shot of somebody? I don't know what the biology is on that lake. Is there spotted bass? Is there largemouth bass? And if they are there any comparable to smallmouth bass?
There's no spotted bass, but there's a small section of the river that does have some largemouth in it. That largemouth prevail in that location. Largemouth could very well win this tournament. They could very well win this tournament. However, it would be more difficult to do because there's less of them, and they're in a smaller area that's more pressured by bass boats. But the very southern section of the boundary has a lot of large grass flats that have some very, very healthy largemouth bass that live in them. And I'll tell you, I know someone last year that went out on day 2 of the Hobie B.O.S, and he was not in the Hobie B.O.S tournament and caught 95 inches of largemouth last year.
Wow.
The largemouth get big in this river just like the smallmouth do because they're basically eating the same forage. And, my personal best largemouth out of the river is almost 8 pounds. It was 22.25 inches. And it was caught, I think, in late May on a buzzbait in the Goldsboro pool, which is the one I'm talking about. They have some big fish down there, but like I said, it's a little bit more difficult to target them because there's a lot of grass and it gets a lot of pressure. But it's also a slower moving pool. It's a little bit deeper, and it plays into the strength of someone who is a largemouth fisherman that doesn't know anything about smallmouth bass. The right person could go down there and find something. They could scare a lot of people up north fishing for smallmouth because the largemouth are big too. There's just not as many of them. So, largemouth could absolutely win this tournament. I've said it for a long period of time. No one ever believes me, but I promise you it's true. I promise you 100% that if the right person went down there and put some time in and found something, they could do a lot of scaring of people up north who are fishing for smallmouth.
Interesting. We'll see how it shapes up. I'm sure somebody's going to try it.
It hasn't been attempted yet in the last 2 years. I really want someone to do it. It's not my forte. You put a flipping stick in my hand or you put a frog rod in my hand, I don't have a lot of confidence. I'm not good at that. But the right person could go down there and flip up 90 some plus inches of largemouth. It's going to have a lot of people thinking on day 2,
questioning their decisions.
Yeah, like what? Man, I should have went fishing for largemouth. I want to see it happen just because I want to show that this fishery is not a one-trick pony, But
yeah, definitely. No, it's a great fishery, and it's certainly on my bucket list. Should be anybody's bucket list if you're in kayak bass fishing with smallmouth or largemouth bass. Jake, I promised you I was going to keep you in the 45-minute range because you're on your day off, and I already ruined your date night. So
you're good.
I'll give you as much time as you want to kind of do the plugs. Where can people follow you? Where can people follow Benny and Bruno? I know you just posted a new video on YouTube.
I did.
So go ahead
So
and tell us about your social
I'm
media.
going to touch on a couple things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to send an offer out to you.
Oh, yeah?
This is an offer that's only good for you.
Let's hear it.
Next year, I will be opening up a guide service on the Susquehanna River out of kayaks. When you're ready, you contact me. Just fly up here. I'll have the rods. I'll have the boat. I'll have the motor. And I'll have everything you need. If you want to bring your own reels, because do you reel right or left-handed?
Right-handed. So I reel with my right hand.
So you're gonna have to bring your own weird reels because I'll have left-handed.
That's all good.
Bring your own reels if you want, but you are more than welcome. You just let me know when, and I will take you out on this river, and we'll shoot a promo video with me and Armando and put you on some giant smallmouth. So that's a special offer only to you. It's not good for your viewers. It's only for you, Armando.
When do you start? When are you expecting to start that?
This year, I honestly expected to do it this year, but I ran into supply chain issues with getting the boats and the motors and stuff like that. Everything's been on back order and backlog. So it's going to be done out of an inflatable boat that is a new boat coming on the market by Innovative Sportsman. Trey Leach, who runs Innovative Sportsman, is bringing out an inflatable boat, inflatable kayak. It's called the Osprey. And last knowledge that I had of it, I believe it was 14 feet long and 36 inches wide. And it's made out of a very, very durable material that's going to be designed for use around rocks and stuff like that. It's going to be a great river boat. It's going to be the best river boat that there is. But that's the boat that I'm going to be using to do it. I'm going to have two of them, one with me and one for my clients. And then hopefully as the years go on, maybe expand and take two, maybe three people out. But they're going to have a Torpedo on the back of them, an ultralight 1103. So you won't have to worry about paddling unless the river gets super shallow. And then we'll honestly probably be walking anyway. But, that's the goal. And then I have my rod sponsor, Temple Fork Outfitters, otherwise known as TFO. They're going to be, all the rods will be TFO. The reels will probably all be Shimano unless somebody wants to bring their own. And then, everything else will be provided. The only thing the goal is that when you come to me to come fishing on the river, the only thing you have to bring is yourself and a fishing license. So that's the goal. That's the intent. And that's hopefully next year when that starts. Because like I said, I would have done it this year, but supply chain, everybody knows how the supply chain's been. So,
yep.
That said, I would say huge thank you to my wife because she dealt with me sitting here talking to you for the better part of 45 minutes here. And then Benny and Bruno, they have their own Instagram. All right, let me find it.
Well, while you find it, what is your Instagram and your YouTube channel?
So I am pa.kayakbassin. It's it's just Pennsylvania, PA, period, kayak bassin. It's pretty easy to find on Instagram. And then on YouTube, it's just all you have to do is search my name. That's Jake Harshman, and that'll bring up my YouTube channel. So Benny and Bruno is, I'm gonna murder this here. Let me find it. It's Doodle Brothers _Bruno and Benny, I think is what it is. Yeah. And Benny. I don't know. My wife came up with it. She needs to refine that a little bit because right now that's not refined. But yeah, that's the dogs. They're a fun little bunch. So, and thank you for you, man. Thanks for putting me on your show again. I always enjoy coming on and talking to you. It's a blast when we get to do it. So,
same deal here, man. Love talking to you. I've made it now. I don't know if you know this, but you're like a yearly fixture.
Well,
every year.
let's do this again in September before the
Yep.
native event. I think
Cool.
that would be a fun, because the native event's not, for some reason, I don't know why, whether maybe native's not putting any promotion dollars into it, but not a lot of people are talking about it. But I think it's a really cool thing that they're doing. They're bringing a different aspect into kayak fishing, where they're doing like a mid-Atlantic, or not like a mid-Atlantic. They're doing a major league fishing format where you catch as many fish as you can. And they also have a big bass power hour where you can win $1,000 every hour for catching the biggest bass. Like, yeah, it's not a $10,500 payday, but it could be. If you catch 6 of the biggest bass and win the tournament, or if you catch the biggest bass every hour, like, you could. There's a nice little payday to be had there, and I think people should start talking about it, because it's growth. It's growth for the sport, regardless of which brand sponsors it. It's growth for the sport, and it's more and different ways to go out and kayak fish. So
now let me ask you this, and this proves that I am a loyal Jake Harshman follower. I do remember you being on the dark waters kayak fishing and kind of like sharing your thoughts on Major League Fishing, and you were not a fan. You were like, oh, this is just catching whoever catches the most fish, just throwing the neg rig out there. Now, on the native side, do you change your mind on that?
It's not that I changed my mind. So I disliked Major League Fishing when they were out there and it was a 1 pound minimum. Mm-hmm. To me, that's stupid. That's stupid. Nobody wants to watch you go out and catch 75 1 pound fish. Nobody wants to watch that. But they got smart and they started upping their limits. And they, I like the format. I just didn't like the way they were doing it. Catching 1 pound fish is not impressive to me. I can take a child out with a drop shot and catch 20, 30, 40 1 pound fish. That's not something that I want to watch professionals do. But since they've upped their limits and there's a little bit more strategy involved, I've come around. And native is doing it where you have to, I think their minimum is 14 inches and not 12. I actually promoted and stressed that I thought that they should do 15 or 16 inches for the Susquehanna River, just because of the type of fishery that it is. But they kept it at 14 because that's what all the other events were kept at. So fish has to be at least 14 inches, which I don't think many of those are going to be caught. I think a majority of your fish are going to be between 15 and 18 inches that are caught in the river. I don't even like measuring 14-inch fish on this river. I try not to. And I don't ever think that I'm going to need one of those in a tournament. So, but they do have an increased limit as to what you need to catch. It's not just 12 inches. So, but
that's cool. Yeah, we can definitely mark the calendar for that one in September. We'll talk about it, bring you in and talk about it. I'm very interested in that. I've vaguely heard about it. I don't know why there's no more talk about it. It's interesting to find out. I'll reach out and see if I can have them on the pod.
Yeah, I know. So the local director here for the Susquehanna event is Bill Benini. He's also one of the directors for Delaware Paddlesports' kayak bass fishing series. So if you wanted to reach out to him and have him on, I'm sure he wouldn't mind talking to you about it.
Yeah, we'll talk off air and get that information for you.
Good deal.
Well, Jake, I did not kept my promise of keeping you under 45.
No, you did. I was the one who pushed it out.
But I appreciate you nevertheless coming on the podcast. And while we say goodbye, just stick around so I can get you information for that native event. And we'll definitely reach out to them. But for those out there listening, again, thank you for listening. If you want to be on the water, wear your PFDs. If you are going to have a couple of beers, alcohol drinks, please drink responsibly, stay safe. Make sure you make it back home to your loved ones. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everyone. Tight lines.